What up, though? Welcome to Throwing Stones alongside Ryan Griffin. I'm Matt Basson. And if you don't know by now, you definitely should know. We talking hoops, and not just our Pistons, because we wouldn't have a show right now if all we did was talk about our Pistons. We got the Eastern Conference and the Western Conference
Kate
finals
on the cover of
swing.
Slam.
Before we get to that, got to remind you guys to like and subscribe everywhere you can find us. That would be Twitter, TikTok, Facebook, Instagram, full episode on YouTube, as well as DetroitSportsNation.com. Ryan, Game 5 of the Eastern Conference Finals happened Wednesday night, and we got our wish for the first half or so. We finally had a basketball game, a competitive basketball game. There was no one jumping out to a 20-point lead in the first half. It wasn't the prettiest of basketball games, but with these two teams that play the defense that they play, you expect it to be a little bit uglier than two teams that don't play any kind of defense at all. Still, a combined 38% from the field and 22% from deep in the first half saw Miami leading by 5, 42-37, and then second half stayed competitive in the first half of the third quarter until the Celtics finally figured out how to score a bucket. And then they kept scoring buckets, and Miami couldn't get any buckets, and it went downhill really quickly for the Miami Heat after that.
Yeah, it was the lowest scoring Eastern Conference Finals first half in 8 years, which I didn't go back and look it up, but that's probably like a Bulls Cavs series, something like that. I just had to think. Or it wouldn't have been the Cavs, it would have been the Heat, probably, Bulls Heat. So it was a really ugly game. And I didn't know, like, what I'd prefer. Did I prefer, like, at least one team playing good basketball that was just up by 20 points? Or did I prefer the ugly basketball that we got in the first half, but at least it was competitive.
Mm-hmm.
And I still think I tended to be more interested at the fact that it was competitive. But Boston obviously turned something on there at the end of the third quarter, and they kept it going the rest of the game. So I don't know that the final score was necessarily indicative of what kind of game it was, because I do think it was really ugly there for a minute. And there's going to be excuses, reasons, whatever you want to call them, floating around. Jimmy Butler, probably not right dealing with whatever he's dealing with in his knee. Tyler Hero didn't play. Kyle Lowry banged up as well. But I think some of the Celtics are banged up too. And it's what you've said, it's what you've heard a lot of the national pundits say, is the Celtics are just a better team, and maybe that's what we're seeing. I know the Heat have won 2 blowout games as well, but it seems like the Celtics are able to impose their will on the Heat, more so than the Heat are on the Celtics, and both these teams are really good defensively, where I think the difference is one, the Celtics are better defensively than the Heat are, but two, they can do way more on offense than what the Heat can do. Like, the Heat have really bad offense. And even in some of the games that they've won in this series, their offense still hasn't been great. The Celtics just played bad in those games, and give credit to the Heat. Again, a good defense. But I think overall it comes down to really the difference in the offense, the difference for the Celtics to have multiple guys who can get them a bucket, and the Heat just not being able to get anything going on top of Jimmy Butler going MIA these last 2 games, even though, again, he's hurt probably. Kyle Lowry and Max Strus combining to go like 0 of 15 last game certainly doesn't help, and the team as a whole, I think they shot like 30 for 94 for the game. So shooting, no type of shooting at all for the Heat, and I don't know, it seems like the series is over. Game 6 is going back to Boston. And if the Heat are going to obviously continue to play like this, they haven't shown us anything on offense in these last 2 games, and I don't really have a lot of confidence in Miami for Game 6.
Yeah, it's the stuff that we talked about before the series started. A couple things that I saw coming into it, as far as the Celtics having a tougher test to get to this point than the Heat had. They played better opponents, healthy opponents, and they still were able to win and move on healthy in the most part for Milwaukee. Obviously, Chris Middleton wasn't there. But for Miami, the Hawks weren't a challenge whatsoever. The Sixers were decimated by their own injuries, both with, Joel Embiid in the body and James Harden in the mind. So there was just nothing happening there that was going to cause much of a challenge on their side. And it's, we talked about this before the series. I didn't know where the scoring was going to come from for Miami, besides obviously Jimmy Butler and Bam Adebayo at times. Didn't expect Jimmy to get hurt, and then that went out the window. Duncan Robinson has been MIA for the most part until this last game. Tyler Hero has been hit or miss, and now he's not even playing. And so there's just, and then you got Oladipo, who's been fantastic in spurts. Defensively, he's been great, but offensively, couldn't hit the broadside of a barn with his outside shot in this last game. Got the rare missed badly again by Mike Breen on like back-to-back 3 opportunities by Oladipo. It's just, I didn't know where the scoring was going to come from, and it's come to fruition, whereas with the Celtics, I think they do have more talent overall on their team. A big trade to bring in White from San Antonio. You have a starter level, almost point guard as your backup to deal with and help with all the injuries that the Celtics have had to deal with on their own. Robert Williams has been injured. Marcus Smart and Al Horford missed game 1. Smart missing the last game as well. And then, Jason Tatum is definitely not 100%. There's something going on with that shoulder. Jalen Brown didn't lead. At this point in the season, everyone's a little nicked up, but it just seems like Miami has a little more than just nicked up going on. Lowry has not been the same since the hamstring injury. He doesn't have his burst of speed. He can't stay in front defensively like he usually can. So it's just injuries have absolutely plagued this series. But at both teams' full strength, I thought the Celtics were just a little bit more talented, and as much as injuries have bit both sides, the Celtics have had a little bit better injury luck than Miami has in this series. So it's just playing into the factor that Miami was already in an uphill battle, and the injuries play a factor, make it even more of an uphill battle.
Miami last game, they went into halftime with the lead, but they probably should have been up by way more than 5 because the Celtics were really bad in the first half. And that probably should have been like the light bulb that went off in our heads. Like, oh, Miami's not winning the series because even if the Celtics play like that, 2 threes, and now they're in the lead here. And with the Celtics being able to really go at Miami in kind of whatever ways they want with the injuries that are on both sides, I just don't know that Miami's going to do anything on, again, the offensive side of the ball that's going to put any type of fear in the Celtics, because it feels like a 5-point lead for the Celtics is like a 10-point lead. Mm-hmm. But like a 5-point lead for the Heat, because they're not going to extend it to 9, 10, 11. At least now, maybe before the Jimmy Butler injury, it was a little bit different. But now it seems like if you're down against the Heat, it's no problem. And if you're up against the Heat, like it's way more monumental of a lead than a 6-point lead or like a 7-point lead would normally be. Just because they can't score. And you see some of the talent deficiencies that they've had, and it helps them with, guys going off in the regular season. I know Hero's out, but Duncan Robinson, Max Strus, and being able to pull different things from all of these guys, Dwayne Dedman, and it's pretty commendable. But when you get into the playoffs, it's a different game, and the talent, at least to me, has just been overwhelming on the Celtics side. And the games you've won were games where Jason Tatum's out here scoring 6 or 8 points, and that's just not normally going to be the case. I know it's not normally the case for Jimmy Butler, but it has been the last 2 games, and even 2.5 games, because the half he went out. He only had 8 points a half, was 3-8, and he's 10 for his last 40 right now in this series. So if he's not scoring, the Heat have trouble getting the ball going anyway. And they're 745 last game from the 3. And when you looked at a lot of their 3-pointers, like you just said, the double way off again by Mike Breen, a lot of those threes were just hitting the backboard, not even the rim, hitting the backboard, going straight back. And it was like, oh my God, like how is this? Like, you guys are NBA players and you're out here airballing threes. You're shooting threes that aren't even close. So for Miami to come out like that at home, I don't know, it was pretty disappointing. Again, they had the lead at half, and you thought maybe they could slog out an ugly win. But I think the first half lead was honestly probably more of an indictment on them that they were only up by 5 points than it was any type of confidence builder for them moving forward to Game 6 and maybe Game 7.
Yeah, Jimmy Butler is so important to this team. It's ridiculous. Not just his scoring, but his ability to drive and make something happen, whether for himself or for a teammate. And his knee looks like it's so bad, he's not even willing to drive. And Ime Udoka has flat out said, like, this last game, we played him like a big, because we knew that he wasn't able to do much on that knee. And so we stuck a center on him and let the rest of the team play their defense on everyone else who could still drive the ball. And so with Jimmy Butler not being able to be engaged in the way that he normally is, and he shows how important he is when he is healthy and fully engaged, it's so hard for Miami at this point. And even with Boston shooting as bad as they have, I mean, game 4, they won by 20 points, and they shot, 37% in the game? That's a horrible shooting night, and you still won by 20 points. So it's just an embarrassment of riches right now on the Celtics side of the ball, especially compared to how much Miami is dealing with. It's just rough. And I didn't want this. I wanted Miami. Born and raised a Laker and a Piston, so I hate the Celtics with every fiber in my being. I don't want to be right about this. I don't want them in the finals, and if they get to the finals, I hope Golden State embarrasses them in 5 games. Again, I don't think that's going to happen. This Celtics team is pretty damn tough, so it's going to be interesting to see when we get to that point, what's going to happen. But I didn't want this. I definitely wanted Miami in this situation. I just didn't see it happening with, what the Celtics have shown from January on. It's just been, tremendous basketball on their side, especially defensively. And if they can just figure out how not to continuously turn the ball over. Jalen Brown had 4 turnovers in the first quarter. Like, you do that against Golden State, you're in a lot of trouble. Right now, you can survive that against Miami. But the fact that Boston, Marcus Smart being not 100% hurts, you might have to start Derek White because you need someone who's going to be a ball handler against Golden State, because Brown and Tatum are not ball handlers. Yeah, they can create their own shot at times, but they are not strictly ball handling kind of guys. And you've seen how many times they've turned the ball over, and they're not. Look, a lot of the steals are great by Miami. Miami is very, what is the word I am looking for, where you are taking advantage of the situation. My brain is not working. But anyway, Miami has created a lot of them, but Boston has just coughed it up so many times on their own as well, with just dumb passes, lazy passes, allowing Miami to take advantage of the situation. Opportunistic. That's the word I was looking for. Miami was very opportunistic with a lot of their steals, but Boston a lot of the times was just giving it away as well. And if they continue to do that, it's going to be hard to win an NBA championship turning the ball over as much as they are. Again, this series is not over. We have seen Miami go into Boston and win big. With the health situation going on right now, I don't think either one of us see that happening in Game 6. It certainly could. I believe this series is over.
Yeah, and so one thing about the health situation, and it might sound a little haterish, but I know it's obviously been a factor. If you're injured to the point where you're shooting 7 of 32 your last 2 games or whatever Jimmy Butler's at, just don't play. Because then you're hurting your team more by being out there for 35 minutes or however long he's playing out there than he would be if he just sat on the bench. And the same thing with Kyle Lowry, too. Like, I know the injuries have to play a part, but at some point, these guys do deserve criticism for poor play. And again, I know they're hurt, but if you're that hurt where you can't give your team 25% like you shoot field goal percentage, you shouldn't be out there.
Yeah, it's
like Gabe Vincent run crazy.
Like, yeah, I guess you could let Gabe Vincent run crazy because he's had a pretty good series. He has stepped it up really big in this series. But we've seen Max Strus fall off, especially from what he was in the last series, where he was hitting almost 50% from 3. And that's definitely not happening against this Celtic defense. Kyle Lowry, you know what he brings to the table when he is healthy. He's a very good defensive point guard, but he's nowhere near that. I don't know how you replace that. And especially Jimmy Butler, I don't know what you do to replace everything he brings to the table. The stat line that he is able to give you of 30-plus points and double-digit rebounds and almost 10 assists and a bunch of steals, a few blocks, he fills up a stat sheet in so many ways that helps your team. It's really hard to replace that. So I understand Spo, and Jimmy's a competitor. He's a fighter. You've seen that everywhere he goes. He wants to be out there, and he's going to fight tooth and nail to be on the floor. I don't know how you replace what he can do when he's not healthy to even not have him on the floor at all. I understand what you are saying, and I don't argue about what you were saying. It's just I don't think Miami has the bodies to even come close to making up for the production, especially Jimmy Butler, but also a little Kyle Lowry right now, especially with Hero hurt, and Duncan Robinson is just not, I don't know if he fell out of favor or something. For whatever reason, they hadn't used him much until they've had to in this last 2 games.
And if these guys are gonna go down, then they're gonna go down. But yeah, Jimmy Butler's not helping that team, and neither is Kyle Lowry. And that's my main point. You're playing them way too long for them to be playing that bad.
All right, so you think this is over in 6? You think Boston closes this out this weekend?
Yeah, sadly.
Yeah, same here, sadly. I would love to see Miami pull it off and get back to Game 7, but I don't know how that happens unless Boston continues to turn the ball over time and time again.
I guess the only reason it's not sad is because I think Celtics and Warriors is a better finals matchup than the Heat and Warriors is.
Especially with the Heat not having any healthy bodies.
Yeah.
All right, speaking of those dubs, Ryan, last time we were on here, we were lamenting and teasing Luka Doncic and Jason Kidd for their comments after the Game 3 loss, basically conceding the series is over and making their plans for Cancun and whatnot, and Luka's too young, and he's not ready yet, and Kidd saying this is going to be great growth for us going forward and all this other crap. Lo and behold, the Dallas Mavericks came to fight in Game 4, and the Warriors fought with them in that first quarter, but you could see towards the end of the first half, that the Warriors were getting into their minds of, you know what, all right, we'll take this one back to the crib and finish it there. But Mavs came to play. Luka had put up a great line, not the most efficient of lines, and he also got a ton of help. His teammates were shooting over 50%. They were shooting well from deep. They provided 89 of the points that the Mavs scored in this game in their 119-109 win over the Warriors. It was not that close until the bench players got in for the Warriors and really made some noise in the fourth quarter. But a 29-point lead after 3, the Dubs definitely were, okay, we will finish this at the crib, probably in Game 5. What did you see from the Mavs in Game 4 that you think might give them some hope in Game 5 in San Francisco?
Their shooters finally came to shoot. That's really the biggest difference. Again, I don't think they were getting bad looks in their 3 losses. They just weren't knocking them down. And this game in Dallas, they were knocking them down. And you saw it. They're knocking them down early. They're knocking them down often, honestly, and they're just able to run away with it when they generated so many good looks from 3, and they're finally able to hit them. Their scoreboards are going to look way different than they usually do, and I think it was an off game from pretty much everybody on the Warriors. I saw somebody put down a bet slip where it was like Jordan Poole under, Klay Thompson under, Steph Curry under, whatever these point totals were. Andrew Wiggins under, I think, and then they all hit under. So that probably had something to do with it too, is none of these guys came to step up in the way that you would expect them to. And it's just, I think even Draymond might have gotten into some foul trouble. Maybe that was the game before. But we talked about it. It's really hard to sweep a team. I did think Golden State was going to finish off the sweep based on just what I heard from Kidd and Luka. And then you figured that would probably trickle down to the rest of the team because those are going to be the 2 leaders of the team. The exact opposite happened. Maybe they took it as a message of, oh, you guys think we're done. We ain't done yet. And then they're able to, again, come down, knock down their shots, and build a little bit of confidence. And I think that's what's scary with it, or about a team like the Mavericks, is at any time they can have 5 guys on the court who can all shoot the ball. Now, as we've seen in the series, they don't all go in. But we saw in the series against Phoenix why they were able to come back is because they were able to knock down the 3-point shot. So they're never really out of a series. I still think the Warriors are going to win it. In 5, it'd be really hard to shoot like that for 4 straight games. But I think with the Mavs, there might be a little bit of fright if you're a Warriors fan, just seeing like how many threes they knock down and how many they shoot, and if they continue to fall, it's really hard to beat a team when they shoot from beyond the arc like that.
Yeah, making 23s in a game definitely makes life a lot easier for your team to get the W. Everyone really kind of came to play along with Luka, obviously. Finney-Smith was very efficient, 23 points on 9 for 13 shooting. Reggie Bullock with 18 on 6 for 10 shooting. The team came to play for the Mavs. They weren't going down without a fight. They showed that fight, and Luka in these kind of games in general is just ridiculous. This is the 3rd time this year, this postseason, that the Dallas Mavericks have staved off elimination. Obviously, Game 6 and 7 against Phoenix. Elimination game for both teams in that one. And Luka in these games, he's averaging 33 and 12. He's been absolutely fantastic in these kind of games, and if they're going to need him to be that way again for Dallas to pull off a rare feat, because, look, we've talked about the numbers. 146 teams have fallen behind 0-3 in the NBA playoffs. Of those, 90 have been swept. 42 have been taken out in 5. That is by far the majority, 132 out of the 146. If the Mavs are able to force a Game 6, they will be only the 12th team in NBA history to do that when they have fallen behind 0-3. It's going to be a tough place to do it. That San Francisco is going to be rocking and rolling. I don't even know the name of the stadium they play at. I know the old one. Oracle. It ain't Oracle anymore. They moved across the bay.
It's the Chase Center.
I can't remember what it is. Is it the Chase Center? Okay, that's what I thought. I got
Chase
confused. The Diamondbacks used to play at the Chase 1 ballpark, so Chase has had their name on a few different things over the years. Yeah, so the Chase Center is going to be tough to play, and the Warriors might have learned a little something in this last game, because in the second half, they started playing the youngins. Jonathan Kuminga, came in, dropped 17 and 8 in just over 20 minutes of play. Moses Moody had 10 as well in about 20 minutes. So they might have learned a little bit as well about how to get these young cats to play a little bit more along with their superstar players of Steph and Clay and Draymond and Andrew Wiggins. But it's a tall task to beat this Warriors team 4 times in a row. It's going to be really tough to beat them in this Game 5, but you got to know the Mavs are going to come ready to play. They're going to have a lot of confidence after the way they played this past game, because they really took it to the Warriors from the second quarter through the end of the third quarter. They really beat them up pretty good. And if they found something that works, and if the road players can have that confidence, and we saw it in the Phoenix Suns series. The 2 games back in Dallas, they played great. It didn't look great in Game 5. The Suns were able to win that one, but it did show up in Game 7, absolutely, where these bench players were able to continue to have that stroke. They're going to need it to happen in Game 5, because unlike last time, this is not a 2-2 series. This is a 3-1 series. You can't blow this game where you got none left. So we'll see what the Mavs will bring to the table, but they should be coming in with a little bit of confidence off of how well they played in Game 4.
Yeah, they should be confident. The Warriors will have home court advantage, so they'll, of course, have the fans on their side. And who knows, maybe it was just a galaxy brain move by Kerr to get all these young guys some Western Conference Finals practice, thinking he'll be in it for the next 5 years. I really don't know what that was about, because it even seemed like before they were getting blown out, he let a bunch of those guys on the floor together, which seemed pretty insane given the stakes of the game. But I really think he's just trying to figure stuff out and get the guys some practice, which is honestly like a flex if you think about it. Oh, we're so good, we're just going to throw out every single one of our young players.
They're playing with house
money. I think there was a point where Golden State was down by 2. They took the starters off the floor, and then they were down 10. They brought the starters back in and didn't get any better. But I think it might have been during one of those runs where he had essentially all of the bench on the floor together. With Golden State and Dallas, this series probably comes, I do think that it ends in Game 5. And again, it's just the Warriors, now they have to be the ones that hit shots. Last game, nobody on their team scored more than 20, and that's insane when you think you have Steph Curry, Andrew Wiggins, Klay Thompson, Jordan Poole, like all of these guys on the team who we've seen go for 30 in the playoffs before. They're going to have to step up. I have no doubt that they will step up, or at least 2 out of those guys will, start to play better. And the Mavs, we talked about it, just like in the Phoenix series, typically you shoot worse on the road, especially your role players. And you're not as comfortable, different arena, all that stuff. But they have already played 2 games here in the playoffs. Those games didn't go so well for the Mavericks. But maybe they're a little bit more comfortable in Game 5, and they can extend the series just a little bit longer. And for the Warriors, it's going to come down, at least to me, is you got to win the rebound battle again, because that's something that they've been so good with their lineup, not having a true big. But Kevon Looney's been really good on the boards this playoffs and this series in particular. Steph, I think he was averaging like 8 rebounds in the first 3 games of this series, and the last game he only had 5, which is still good for a guard. But Draymond can obviously rebound. Wiggins has been a pretty good rebounder this series as well. And last game they did lose the rebounding battle. They didn't lose it by much. It was still pretty close. But for them to dominate the series the way that they have for the first 3 games, obviously scoring is going to be important, but I think having just a bigger advantage on the boards is going to be important for them as well, because it's what's been one of the secret sauces to their 3-1 lead.
Oh, yeah. It's always been the thing that gets overlooked with the Warriors because everyone just gets so enamored with the shiny object, and the shiny object is their offense. But their defense and their rebounding have been an absolute integral part in their run in general over the last so many years. And I think they even, talked about it after the game that it wasn't what they usually do. And Steph had said it after the win in Game 3. You're playing with house money at this point now. You're up 3-0. Game 4 is on the road. If you don't win it, you got Game 5 back at home. You can't be considering playing with house money in Game 5 because if you lose Game 5, now you got to deal with Game 6 on the road. So it's going to be a different attitude for the Warriors coming out in Game 5, I would think, than what we saw in Game 4. But I think even Steve Kerr, played a little bit into the house money thing by giving the younger guys a chance to play in a pressure-packed situation of the Western Conference Finals in a game where the game is close. It still matters. And if the young kids performed, who knows? Maybe it ended up working out and the Warriors starters able to come back with a 6-7 point lead, as opposed to what ended up happening, obviously, of them dropping off, being down by 10, and it didn't get any better after that. But it definitely was a little bit of house money feel for the Warriors in Game 4. I don't think we're going to see that again in Game 5 at home because I don't think they want to go back to Dallas.
Yeah, I don't know either, and I'm glad that you did call that out because we talked about I didn't like Kid and Luka's comment. I didn't like the house money comment by Steph either. Like, it's playoffs, you should be locked in every single game. And I know it's Game 4. You're up 3-0. You figure if you lose this one, again, you're going to go back in Game 5 and get the dub. But you guys already blew a 3-1 series like before. You could blow a 3-0 series. It's probably not going to happen. Nobody ever has. But it's bound to happen at some point. You got to treat every game. Take that cliche that coaches always say in players. Take it one game at a time. Like, you can't be looking at Game 4, oh, this one doesn't matter because we got however many games left to get a win. So I hated that he said that. I'm like, honest to God. Oh, it's probably why.
Yeah, no. I wasn't a fan of it either. What I was a fan of was the
get these players to care about
after
the playoffs.
This last game. But no, what I was a big fan of after the game was when Jalen Brunson joined the TNT crew inside the NBA crew afterwards. And Charles Barkley is wonderful for so many reasons. But one of my favorite things about Charles is that he doesn't care. He's not going to be politically correct. And he is going to flat out say the things that a lot of us fans will think at times. And when Jalen Brunson sat down after the game with the crew, Chuck went right in on him and said, when Luka got hurt and couldn't play in the first series, for part of the first series against Utah, you were so aggressive, and it was you and Spencer Dinwiddie were so aggressive and so good and blah, 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 blah. And then Luka comes back, and he basically said, you guys suck when Luka's on the floor. He said it a little nicer than that, but he basically said, why aren't you nearly as aggressive when Luka's on the floor? And Jalen handled it great. Brunson was fantastic with the way he handled it, talking about Luka has a gravity about him, obviously, that you're going to have one eye on him, seeing what he's doing. You almost can't play your same style of ball as you would when you're making up for him not being on the floor. But Charles Barkley just being himself and having no problem asking the players, why do you suck when the star is on the floor, but you so much better when he's off the floor, is a treasure trove for him, because this man has somehow made himself more famous after his NBA career, which is not an easy thing to do because he was really popular and famous as an NBA player. But what he brings to the table, I absolutely love and will absolutely miss whenever he decides to hang up his microphone.
Don't leave our audience hanging. What was the answer Brunson gave?
Oh, Brunson told him that we have to be better about that. Him and Spencer both have to find a way to stay locked in and be aggressive and bring what their game brings to the table, even when Luka is on the floor doing his thing. Like Brunson handled it, beautifully, and then went on to take a shot at his dad, which Shaq had a problem with.
Shaq, very respectful of his father. I love Barkley too, though, and. Like with Brunson going up there, Draymond did that after Game 2, I think. Game 2 or Game 1? But he went up there after one of those wins. It was definitely Game 2 because it was in Golden State, which would make Game 1, I think. One of the games in Golden State, Game 1 or 2. He went up to the crew afterwards and just was talking about it, basically. Talking about the game, very entertaining as always. And yeah, man, I love Charles Barkley. They had a thread going on Twitter the other day of Charles Barkley's best moments, and all of them. It's so funny, so gold. The guy not afraid to laugh at himself. So big ups, as they say, to Chuck. It's the best show. I'm sad that I think the Western Conference Finals is coming to an end in 5 games because that's the end of the TNT broadcast. So I wish TNT would just get the finals.
Chuck's not sad, though. Chuck looking forward to his vacation. He's already got tea time set up in
he's
Arizona. He's waiting to go. He mad it's going 5.
For sure. Even his comment about San Francisco, these dirty streets that TNT had us on. James didn't rain there. So he's
can we talk about the craziness that happened in this game? I completely forgot about this. You got a waterfall falling in the Mavs arena that added to it like another 16-minute delay. Like Mark Cuban must be mad as hell. He'd be like, that is not where I said that waterfall is supposed to be. Like, someone get some flex tape or something up there, man. Get this hole plugged so we can play a basketball game. And then on top of that, you got Draymond with the most unbelievable free throw to ever happen, where it just sat and bounced and sat and then just sat on the top of the rim the whole time and never fell. Just a ridiculous game in general that happened for the things that went around the actual basketball game itself.
Yeah, I think I've only seen a free throw like that once, like in person. It might not even be a free throw. It was just a shot where the ball got stuck on that back part of the rim. And then you even had Reggie Miller call out the ESPN crew, talking about a game of 4-on-4 with their broadcast crew. This is Reggie and Harlan and Stan Van Gundy against like Jeff and Mike Breen and Mark Jackson. So all of this game except I just didn't remember both of their names. But yes, but the sideline reporters, the 2 women. Yeah, Salters and I don't know if it's Malika Andrews.
No, I don't remember who it was for the NBA crew either, the ESPN crew.
But so like everything that surrounded this game, I guess, was funny and interesting, just not the actual basketball part of it.
There. The first quarter of the game was really good. It was a competitive battle. The Mavs and the Warriors both brought it in the first quarter. After that, it was pretty much all Mavs until the Warriors made that late run with the young crew. But I think this is the last show where you and I are going to be talking about the Eastern and Western Conference Finals, and the next time we get together, it'll be the NBA Finals, because I don't think either team is playing after this weekend until it's against each other, and I think we're going to end up with the Warriors in 5 and the Celtics in 6. You?
Yeah, I'll say the same. The Warriors 5, Celtics in 6, and then I think the finals are scheduled to start June 2nd.
Yep, June 2nd, Game 1 of the NBA Finals. All right, along with the games these last few days, the All-NBA first, second, and third teams were announced, Ryan. And the first team was Devin Booker, Luka Doncic, Giannis, Jason Tatum, and Nikola Jokic, the MVP. Do you have any gripes with anyone on the first team NBA this year?
No, Booker, I guess I'd throw Steph on there ahead of Booker, but I feel like they had to put somebody from the Suns on there because it's a team in the regular season that was just a buzzsaw. And for Embiid, the only other gripe you would have is if you don't think the position should matter and you just think it should be like the 5 best players that year, which I don't necessarily have a problem with. But if you were going to vote like that, then Embiid should have been first team because he was second in MVP and then you get second team All NBA.
Right. No, I know. It's crazy. That's the big gripe, obviously, is that you're doing it by position. So you have 2 guards, 2 forwards, and a center. And in a modern NBA world now where we talk so much about positionless basketball, it's kind of weird that they are still adhering to old rules with the way they do their first, second, and third team. I think you should just take the 15 best players and put them on your first, second, and third team in whatever order you see them is 1 through 15. If you are putting Embiid on the first team like he deserves to be, are you taking Booker off? Or are you taking Luka off?
I think I would have took Booker off. I think I would have took Booker off. Like, as much as the team success, I'm sure, factored into it. I just think all 5 individuals who would have been on first team if you replaced Embiid with Booker just had better seasons than Devin Booker did.
Okay, and I'm going off of memory here. Second team was Steph, Durant, DeRozan, Embiid. Who am I missing? Who else was on second team? Steph.
I thought Chris Paul was on second.
DeMar DeRozan, Kevin Durant, Joel Embiid. Who was the other guard along with Steph?
Was it Ja?
It was Ja, thank you. Yeah, John Morant, second team. Any gripes with the second team?
No, now that I'm looking at the third team here as well. No, not really. I think Durant probably would have been first team if he played more games, but he didn't, so that's where you get slotted. And then, again, I probably would have just switched Steph and Booker. But I think they got the second team for the most part. I think this was probably – even all three teams, honestly, I think they did a pretty good job of voting, like a better job than I think giving them credit for before.
All right, who else? Who made the third team? We know LeBron. Trae Young was third team guard.
Yep. Yeah, LeBron, Trae Young, Chris Paul, Karl Anthony Towns, and Pascal Siakam.
Good for that man making an All-NBA team.
It's good.
That's big. Yeah. No, that's big. So, if the first team and the second team played a best-of-3 series, who you got?
Look, Steph, KD, Joel, Ja, DeMar versus
Pretty formative team.
Giannis, Jokic, Luka, Tatum. Ooh, man.
Right?
Yeah, that's tough. So
I kind of lean towards
Tatum
the
and Giannis, good defenders. I think Giannis and Tatum. Durant, Steph, DeMar, Embiid. Yeah. Ooh. I don't know. I think the first team. I think the second team. There is, and I don't think there's. I think there's a little bit more shooting on the first team, which is why I think I'd give them the edge. And the second team, it's not really impressive at all defensively. like Steph's been pretty good defensively this year, but then you have DeRozan and Morant, and I know you have Embiid, but Embiid's going to be out on the perimeter trying to guard Jokic, so I don't know how much help he's going to be. He's not going to be down there patrolling the paint. So I think I do give the edge to the first team. I'd like a little bit more shooting on the second team because you have Steph and KD, and Embiid can knock it down, but not really. Not Jokic can, and I think DeMar and Ja still have work to do as far as their jump shot goes. So I'll go with the first team. And you got Giannis, who I think is just the best player in the NBA.
Mm-hmm. I just remember when the second team dropped, I was like, wow. I was like, that's a pretty good team. I want to see. I don't know how this would go against the first team because, the first team definitely has better defense. But the second team, you got outside shooting with Steph. You got outside shooting and inside shooting with Kevin Durant. You've got mid-range with DeMar DeRozan. You've got driving to the paint with Ja all day. And then you got Joel Embiid who can do it from the inside and the outside. I was like, that's a pretty good team.
I know, but we just saw Tatum give KD the business in that playoff series, especially defensively. So I don't know that KD's getting all of his moves off with Giannis and Tatum up in his grill the whole time.
Yeah, no, very true. And our man, Jalen Rose, in the midst of all these NBA first, second, and third team, finds himself in the scuffle because this man threw a vote out to Kyrie Irving for an all-NBA position. Look, man's a heck of a basketball player, but when you miss over half the year, can you really even be considered for all-NBA?
No. No, and he missed like way more than half the year too. He played 29 games. And Jalen apologized for it, although I don't know it's necessarily something you need to apologize for. So it's probably better to just say he admitted his mistake on TV. But still, good for Stephen A. because Stephen A. was incredulous. And Jalen tried to skate by it. No, I made a mistake. And Stephen A. is like, no, I understand that. But we still need to get to the bottom of this, which I appreciated because voting for Kyrie for an All-NBA team is insanity. Like he wasn't there. Absolutely. He barely played. So what are you talking about? I think Desmond Bane got a vote too, which if you're talking about the top 15 players in the NBA, I don't know how you're giving Desmond Bane a vote. Fine season. Great player. But what? So it's there was a lot of voting, I don't know, craziness, if you will. Because I did deep dive into the different ballots just because I wanted to see who got votes. And, yeah, there were guys getting, like, all defensive votes. Like, that doesn't make any sense at all. Guys getting left off rookie teams, like Herb Jones was on, like, wasn't on a lot of the ballots in favor of guys like Trey Murphy and Jose Alvarado, who plays for the same team. I was like, that's just not true. So some of the votes were indefensible, but it's always fun to look at because there's so many guys that vote for them. I think it's 100 votes, at least for the All-NBA, because Giannis got 100 like first team votes and his total score was 500 points. So I think that's how that works. Yeah, so it's always fun to look at and see who's getting votes for what. Last year, Derrick Rose got an MVP vote. So it's always fun to do a deep dive. Yep.
Too funny. All right. The next time we talk, it will be most likely preparing for the NBA Finals. You and I both think the Golden State Warriors are finishing this thing off in 5 at Golden State, and we think the Boston Celtics are finishing this thing off in 6 in Boston. I hope we're wrong. I hope we have a Game 7 in the East and we have a Game 6 in the West, so we have something more to talk about when we are on here next week. But that's going to do it for today's show. For Ryan Griffin, I'm Matt Basson. We are Throwing Stones. Thank you for hanging out with us. We'll see you guys again real soon.
Yep.
Man on a mission, I'ma get it. You know I be on a what?